They get so desperate, they'll go to an audition at some guy's house who they never met, don't know anything about, and they rarely tell anybody where they're going or who they're going to meet. That's a buffet for predators.
Something has happened, it's our fault.
We are talking about the movie Headshots. This one is directed and co-written by Chris O'Neill and stars Nikita Khitrova, Anna Lopez, Noelle Wheeler, and basically a lot of kind of more or less unknown actors and actresses. So the story here is kind of a thriller slash horror, ultimately about kind of serial killers. And it's quite an interesting idea here because it kind of pulls the curtain behind the acting and kind of Hollywood scene, and basically the lower hanging fruit in regards to the people who go there. And then there's some facts it says at the beginning of the movie, like, you know, 1 million people turn up in Hollywood a year to try and become an actor or an actress, and you know, there's a whole bunch that go missing and things like this. So that's the kind of the basis of this story, is these kind of what happens to these people who go there to try and find their dreams and ultimately kind of fall between the cracks. So this kind of, it follows this British actress. So she has moved to America to try and kind of obviously find fame, etc. And she kind of falls in with this group of sort of struggling actresses, basically, who are going to this kind of, this particular kind of acting class to try and make connections and stuff like that, which they say in the movie, but you never really see that, to be honest. You know, while they're there, they finds out that there's all this kind of bitchiness, rivalry, you know, competition, and out kind of cutthroat behaviour from these kind of like these struggling actors and actresses. And ultimately there is also a serial killer element here from a person who has failed as an actor and kind of feels bitter because of it, and kind of wants to take out essentially aspiring actresses, because ultimately it's a case of jealousy and taking away what they don't have and things like that. So let's first of all discuss what works with Headshots. So certainly an intriguing idea, and in actual fact I think a lot of the success of this movie is actually in the drama of the kind of the acting kind of side of it, in regards to you know, peeking behind the curtain at Hollywood, and how kind of people go there with all these kind of like these lofty dreams and things, and how the reality kind of comes crashing down, and how hard it actually is, and also the kind of the kind of the rivalries and things like this, and the kind of you know, people kind of sabotaging each other to try and get ahead, and that's sort of like that real kind of cutthroat. But it has some intriguing ideas here, and it does actually have some commentary on some interesting kind of like little trends that we sort of see in Hollywood. For example, you know, there's a whole thing where people think, oh, why is it always British actors and actresses getting roles over American ones? You look at the superhero genre, many of the kind of the big roles are filled by British actors, when obviously we're such a small country, how they fill in all those roles, and it's kind of like to do with again a little bit the kind of competition between the Americans and the kind of the Brits, and how they are trained, etc. Which I just thought was quite a fun little nod. And that all that was actually quite kind of fascinating. The thing I would say here I really enjoyed is when our British actress kind of goes there, she's then followed later in the film by her brother and sister, and they are a great comedy duo who have absolutely great chemistry between them, I must say, and come across as certainly a lot more grounded people kind of in their kind of their personalities, and they have some quite kind of funny banter. And you know, and kind of like way they're kind of going about things, and they're much more kind of down to earth people, and then having to deal with the kind of like the more kind of stars in their eyes type kind of Hollywood personas when they ended up going to the kind of like the Los Angeles scene. That I thought was actually quite fun, and it's obviously, I think the idea here is also very strong. And for a low budget film, I think it's you know, on a technical level, it's well shot. There wasn't any kind of problems with kind of camera angles, movements, lighting, sound design. I thought was all very good, kind of like to a good standard. What doesn't work for me, ironically, the acting is fairly mixed, I would say. There are some actors that I enjoy their performances, the brother and sister couple that come in later on in the movie. But some of the kind of like the American characters, I don't know. I didn't think their performances were particularly good. Particularly our main villain, particularly hammy acting, and ironically, that person is like an acting coach in the film. So the irony wasn't lost on me, but the acting for that particular person wasn't very good. What else? The kind of the gore effects here are a little disappointing. The modus operandi of our serial killer is to essentially slice the face off our victims and kind of pull it off in a kind of, because that's obviously the money makers, people's face. And I don't know, when we see the kind of like the skinless faces, it just looks like someone's regular face with a little bit of kind of red kind of like fake blood on there. It's not particularly good. There's no real prosthetics there. A little bit disappointing. And the equivalent of that, I would say, as well, is our actual kills. When we see people who are getting stabbed, which happens throughout the movie, it's very unconvincing, I've got to say. I think more could have been done with the gore side of it and the horror sort of side of it. And I've got to say, it's maybe just a tad too long. I think it could have been cut down only by maybe about 10 minutes. I felt would have been a little bit better. I think it just kind of like the pacing of it just kind of runs out of steam in a couple of instances. But it's an interesting look, because obviously we kind of see this kind of seedy kind of side of a Hollywood dream, which I find is interesting. Sprinkle that in with kind of an interesting kind of serial killer story, and they have these kind of our serial killer characters are quite interesting, and we are hinted at kind of their kind of backstory, which seems quite depraved. It would have been nice to have switch it up and to have a little bit more kind of to do with that, I think. Certainly with the male antagonist, as I'm going to say. Try not to give any spoilers here, but it's kind of hard. Anyway, so overall, it's certainly an interesting thriller, not really a horror. I don't think the horror elements here are particularly well played up. And some kind of ropey acting aside, it is actually a fairly decent story. And if you're interested in the business of Hollywood, it has that aspect as well. So it certainly makes it somewhat of a different kind of story. I mean, there have been horror films about this. I reviewed one not so long ago called LA Slasher. So this is not particularly, it's not massively original, but it's still quite an interesting idea here, I feel. So 5 out of 10, have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.